Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Tuesday, July 8th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Texas game in 53 days, the game against Michigan in 144 days. If you're planning your next event, make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle, Columbus's favorite food truck, surfing up smash burgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. Book your catering today at GratefulGriddleOH.com. The game against Michigan, that is going to be part of today's conversation with our buddy Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeHuddle.com. We are going to be ranking the 5 Big Ten road games that the Buckeyes have on their schedule this year. No non-conference road games, just 5 Big Ten road games on the schedule this year, ranking them in terms of difficulty / danger / whatever you want to talk about. So, all right, Tony, I'm going to give these to you in order. I'll have my thoughts in a minute, but I just want to get some, initial thoughts from you. If anything you think is going to be, if you think there's an area where we're going to really disagree, I'll just do them sequentially. They start at Washington, then at Illinois, then at Wisconsin, at Purdue, and at Michigan. Any initial thoughts there on something where maybe you think, oh boy, this is one where we're really going to disagree?
Honestly, I don't think we will. The only disagreement is how much we want to disagree on the middle 3. That's the only disagreement here, because I think we can. I don't want to spoil things, Tom, but I'm guessing the Purdue game is perhaps your easiest. I don't want to speak for you, would never, ever try to do so. But I think the real discussion maybe becomes, maybe I'm speaking out of turn. Maybe the real discussion is Illinois and Wisconsin and Michigan or whatever. Hey, I'm excited to see how this goes.
All right, well, we'll start at the one that's probably the least scary, maybe least dangerous, and that is, as you suggested, at Purdue. Let's start with why is this the least dangerous, and the least dangerous because Purdue had a couple really great players last year, and one of them is playing in Columbus, Ohio. That is tight end Max Clare. One of them is playing safety for Oregon now. That is Dylan Thieneman. The rest of the Purdue team was pretty not very good at football last year, and then they're also in the first year of a new coach era. More Ryan Walters to kick around, so now they're starting fresh this year, and it is not going to be a great year for Purdue football. The only counterpoints I had here were, number one, this is the week after Penn State, so you do have potentially a little bit of a hangover whether the Buckeyes win or lose that game. Number two, Ross-Ade Stadium is, Tony, famously haunted. It wouldn't be the craziest thing we've ever seen in the history of Ohio State football to see them lose at Purdue, but it'd be probably in the team picture of the craziest things we've ever seen with Ohio State football.
You would think it would be the craziest thing we would see this season, certainly among these road games, if it were to happen. That's why I agree with you with where it is. I think in the past, Rondale Moore is not coming through that door. That's one of those things where the last time we saw craziness happen, that was part of the problem. I don't know that Purdue has any kind of playmaker like that. And as you said, one of their best playmakers is playing for Ohio State this year. So this is the free space on the board. Now I'm interested to see where we go from here. But this should be one where Ohio State gets their young guys in. And even, I think I wrote about this I wrote about it sometime this week, where Tavian St. Clair maybe gets a little bit of run in an actual Big Ten road game in this one. So I think it's an easy pick here for you, Tom, which, congrats.
Thank you. Good. So validation right off the bat, feeling better about life already. Now, as you said, the middle 3 is kind of where it gets a little bit interesting because it feels like the most challenging opponent potentially in terms of talent is not necessarily the most challenging road spot in terms of the spot on the schedule. So I'm going to go, at the middle 3. I don't want to spoil any surprises here, but it's going to, in some order, be Illinois, Washington, Wisconsin. I'm going to go at number 4 with at Wisconsin. Badgers. Maybe this is the year the Luke Fickell thing starts to work. They're up in Madison. It's just they still have a lot of the same issues they've had over the last few years. One of the challenging things for the Buckeyes on this one is Madison. We'll see. Madison after dark can get a little hinky, and also it is the week after the Illinois game, so the second straight road game for Ohio State. It's also the week before they have a week off, so maybe you get a little bit of a look, either a hangover from the Illinois game or a little bit of a look ahead to, oh, thank goodness we finally have a week off, and how good can Wisconsin possibly be? But I do have Wisconsin as the number 4 on this list.
Do you expect this to be a night game then? Because this has all of the makings of it, but USC at Notre Dame is also that same weekend. So that is a night game. So that may ease some things for Ohio State. But I agree, this is the number 4 for me as well. But we've seen really good Ohio State teams go into Madison and lose, and top ranked teams go in there and lose. And you can't just assume you're going to roll in there. But of these teams, this one is of the remaining teams, like the offense doesn't really scare you as much, and the defense is it is what it is. So I think potentially Ohio State can out talent and just withstand the environment, but also as Madison, has Camp Randall been all that great during the Luke Fickell era anyway. So I'm with you on this, having it at number 4.
And if it's a 3:30 kickoff instead of a 7:30 kickoff, that does change things a little bit. I mean, just think back to some of the Ohio State night games that they've played there. 2003, was it, what was the year that Wisconsin ran back the opening kickoff? Was that 2010, I believe? Yeah, so, when you have seen Ohio State lose up there, you have seen that happen at night. If that's a noon game, you don't get the folks at the folks at Wisconsin, Tony, they do know how to tailgate, but they just have less time to do it if it's a noon kick or a 3:30 kick. So that potentially works in your favor. All right, so let's go on to number 3. I'm going to say at Washington, and there are certainly some issues here. I mean, Washington is going to be a better team than they were last year. Kind of had a transitional year in that first year after Kalen DeBoer's departure, but this is the first road game of the year. It's a venue that none of the players at Ohio State have played in before. It's a cross-country flight. It's the week after an off week. So, you've got some things where you're a little bit out of your rhythm. The week after this is your home game against Minnesota. That's probably not a big distraction, but it feels like there's enough different stuff here that this could be, between Washington being a pretty decent team and first-time starter on the road, famously a very loud venue. I have not been there, but I've heard enough people tell me it's loud. And, last year I went to Oregon and thought, how loud could it be? It's not that big. It's like, oh no, this is pretty loud. And you hear a lot of the same stuff about Washington. So I think there's a lot of extraneous stuff here that makes this maybe a little more difficult than just the, line up the helmets next to each other would make you think.
I'm in agreement with you here with having them at number 3 as well. There are some pieces of this Washington offense that scare you. Quarterback Damon Williams is fast, can run, can throw. They have a running game that goes along with them. So Ohio State's going to have to not sell out stuff to run, but contain the run and then hope the back end holds up. And with the sustained noise at Oregon, and what I think these two stadiums are designed by the same guy. So I'm expecting if the game is close throughout, it's going to be sustained noise. So if you can do something to make it a 14-point game in the second quarter, or maybe get the crowd out of it, I think Ohio State has the potential to do that and the talent to do that. But yeah, going out west, this place, I think we both have a lot of respect for it, and that's without seeing it. So I'm looking forward to being out there. But I agree with this having this as number 3. They're not as talented as the other two teams, and maybe not as physical. And I think maybe that's also where I like Ohio State in this one.
Yeah, if you can win the line of scrimmage, that is another way to quiet the crowd, maybe just a little bit. And, as you said, boy, if you can get a 14-point lead, that certainly will help your chances of winning as well. This is why you get the big bucks, that kind of analysis. We appreciate it. So number 2 now, at Illinois. This is a very talented Illinois team, probably the most talented Illinois team we've seen in 15 years, maybe 20 years. I mean, you're probably going back to the Juice Williams kind of era where Illinois was making a significant bowl game. They made the Rose Bowl that year. This is Brett Bielema's best team there. This is probably Illinois' best team in a long time. This is the week after the Minnesota game, the week before the game at Wisconsin. So you're not going to have a big hangover from the Minnesota game. This is also early enough in the schedule where Illinois in mid-November is a little more daunting weather-wise than at Illinois in mid-October. You got this early enough in the schedule that you're probably okay, and it's not, in terms of not playing in a wind tunnel any more than that place ever is. but it's also early enough in the schedule where you've had one road game, so you've got your starters have all played on a loud road environment. And Illinois is not a crazy, crazy hostile environment. It feels like one where you hear more about the conditions than the noise or any of that stuff.
Yeah, I've been there a couple of times, and the weather is never great no matter when you're there. But at this point, things should be fine. It shouldn't be an excuse, or if you want to use it for that, then you'll be ignoring all of the reasons why Ohio State is actually having trouble. But this is going to be a very confident Illinois team. They're experienced. I think they're going to do as little as possible to harm themselves. Now, that doesn't mean maybe Luke Altmaier throws some interceptions. He's been known to do so. But like, this to me is just a game that you're going to have to fight constantly for, because that's what Brett Bielema and his teams do. They'll just fight and fight and fight. And then also he's going to tell you about it from the sideline. So you're going to have to deal with that aspect of it as well. So yeah, I agree with this one. I think, Illinois has playoff expectations. Now, can they live up to those expectations? That's not something they're famously known for.
No, and this may be one of those games where if they win this, boy, they're in great shape because they don't have a brutally difficult schedule, but they are not necessarily a team that has the brand where they're going to get the benefit of the doubt if they're right on the borderline. So this is potentially a really, really big game for them in terms of having that pelt on the wall, having that resume win that the committee is really pointing to in the November, December, when the committee's conversations really actually matter.
Yeah, and they missed both Penn State and Oregon, so this is their opportunity for a prime win.
Yeah, this is definitely their Super Bowl this year. So that is number 2. Another team for whom the Ohio State game tends to be a Super Bowl, and vice versa, is our number 1 team, Tony. Regular season finale at Michigan. This is the week after the Rutgers game for Ohio State, so not a real hangover concern there, but, Ohio State has had the last couple trips up in Ann Arbor not go real great. The last couple times in Columbus have not gone real great for the Buckeyes. So it feels pretty clear to me that even before you start getting into how does Michigan match up in terms of positionally and how are they going to replace some of the guys and are you going to have a true freshman quarterback and all that kind of stuff, even before you get to that, there's a lot of history here, there, and man, there's a mental hurdle that you got to get over and all that kind of stuff. To me, pretty clearly, even setting aside the personnel stuff, this is number 1 with a bullet.
Yeah, for sure. It's a helmet game, and then it becomes a line of scrimmage game. And if the helmet game takes you out of that line of scrimmage game, then you've already lost. So this is definitely number 1 until it's not. And Ohio State's going to have to do some things to make it so that it isn't. And next year or in 2 years when we do this again, can Ohio State have coming off of 2 wins or whatever, where this isn't. Where it's just a game in terms of, and it's the rivalry game, but this is more than just a rivalry game. This is like 4 rivalry games, basically, all molded on top of each other as you're trying to win this one game. It's going to be more than that. So that's one of the aspects that makes it more difficult. But this is obviously number 1, and Ohio State should be the more talented team, but that hasn't necessarily mattered in the past, in the recent past.
Yeah, and definitely one, they say throw the records out. You definitely threw the records out last year, and we'll see what the records are this year. We have seen plenty of upsets in this series over the years. We don't even know who the favorite's going to be this year, but you may see another upset this year up in Ann Arbor. We will see how that goes. There's a long way to go between now and then. Starting with Big Ten Media Days, we are just now 2 weeks away from being out in Las Vegas and covering the 3 full days of Big Ten Media Days out there. Going to get a chance to talk to a lot of players, a lot of coaches, a lot of media and other folks. Going to be talking to Big Ten officiating folks, talking to the college football playoff folks, TV network folks. This is one of the great weeks of the year in terms of us getting lots of unique and different information for you. That is all coming up this month, which would make this month a great time for you to join us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where we have our whole team of insiders covering the Buckeyes, covering recruiting, covering X's and O's, and all that, and a really fun and active community on the Huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus. If you've been thinking about signing up, this would be a great time to do it. Sign up right now, just $4.99 for your first month. Get you access to our whole team of insiders, all that great content, and more, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.